Hey, what's going on? It's Stokely from Sosa on Ole. I don't know if my car's gonna make a bunch of noise because I just turned something on and it's making a lot of noise. But hey, let's see what we can do. Now, I was thinking about, well, not just thinking about. I was inspired by because I said, well, I look at social media a lot, infinite scrolling, all of that. And there was a guy, or there's multiple people talking about eating living food. Eating food that's alive. Some people are into raw foods where they don't cook their food. They don't cook their vegetables and stuff like that. And, some people don't really believe in overcooking food to the point where it loses its nutritional value, or it's the parts of it that are beneficial are destroyed due to heat. Cooking should be done with minimum heat as possible. In my opinion, it's understood that, for instance, when you're frying things, you shouldn't be above 300 degrees. When you're using cooking oils, you shouldn't go above 300 degrees. Some people believe that the cooking oils are bad. Maybe just the seed oil. Some people say, well, any one of those vegetable or seed or whatever related nut or whatever extracted oils are no good, and butter is better. And some say pig fat is better. Some say tallow is better, or something like that, or lard, or animal-based fats are better for frying and stuff like that. Now, but what I really want to talk about is actually just the living food. Now, I don't really fully understand what they mean by that, but I interpret it to mean that, in our most primitive and actually most sustainable habitat, we would be taking food from the tree directly. And there were no refrigerators in the jungle or in the wilderness, right? There's no refrigerators. There's no wine cellar or storage cellar, or one of those things that you dig in the ground and you put your cold storage items in. There's none of that in the wild. There's none of that in the wild. So as a result of that, you had to eat your food when you got it. Now, later on, of course, we developed ways to preserve food, like, canning it, using salt, using spices, making jerky, like the Native Americans made jerky, like dry the meat, get all the blood out of the meat, then put it in the sun to dry out. And then that piece of meat, now, when it's dried out by the sun, is dehydrated. You keep it dry, and nothing will, it won't. Especially if you got spices in it, it won't really go bad for as fast as regular raw meat, But so we develop ways to preserve food, whatever the case may be. So a lot of our food is, by the time we get it, it's already dead. I'm not talking about meat. Meat is not really what I want to talk about. I mostly mean fruits, vegetables, I guess. Fruits and vegetables, the things that we can just eat that have a good shelf life, some of them, in my limited opinion, in their most basic form, are like seeds, in my limited opinion. If you think about corn, which allegedly, from my limited understanding, Native Americans were big on corn. Now, corn, you can dry it, and you can have it for a very long time. So you can plant it here, you can plant it there. Now, I don't think the Native Americans were cooking corn in pots, so it's not really. They must have been roasting them. They must have been roasting the corn if they were eating corn, or they're making powder out of it and doing similar to how people in Mexico make tortillas and stuff like that. So maybe they were crushing it and making bread out of it. But a corn kernel is a seed, and you can have that seed. I've had corn seeds probably for 2 winters, and outside, and they're all dried, and I plant them on the 3rd spring or whatever, and they still grow. So when you think about it, that seed is still got life in it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like an egg, but just in a dormant state, kind of. Anyhow, things like sweet potatoes. I have some sweet potatoes growing in my yard right now. When you buy that sweet potato from the store, it's still like alive to the point where it starts growing after a while. Ginger, things like onions and garlic and potatoes. Sometimes your potato will start growing if you don't put it in a refrigerator. Unfortunately, we put our potatoes in a refrigerator, they go bad. But if you leave them in a place I don't know what kind of conditions, that potato will start growing. So that potato is still alive. Now, potato is something that's pretty big in Europe. Places like Ireland, etc. Potatoes kept that whole island alive during a famine. So, potatoes are a great thing that also stay alive. Sweet potatoes, I don't know where some sweet potatoes originate from. Now, yams and cassava, those are things that people eat in Africa, all throughout Africa. Yams and cassava, those things will still grow for a good amount of time, and those provide a lot of carbs, and all of these things are really carbs, but these are all plants that after you buy them from the store, even if you buy them from the store now, they're still, you can actually just stick them in the ground and they might grow. The yams, the corn, the potato, the cassava, the sweet potato, stuff like that. Even beans and peas. I've never tried to grow a bean or a pea that I had just as food. I mostly grew the beans or the peas that I got that were specifically for growing. But I would assume that the beans and the peas and the kidney beans and all these things that we buy from the store, in theory, I believe that they would grow also. Now, there's other food, carrots. I forgot carrots too. Carrots, those are still alive. That's what I think about when I think about living food. I think about food that you can take it, stick it in the ground, and it'll grow. Now, meat is definitely not a living food, and this goes back to the experiment that a guy did online that kind of inspired this thought. One of the people, where he stuck some electrodes into a potato and he got voltage, and they stuck it into some meat and it didn't have any voltage. So of course that's because of chemicals. You have an acid and you have a base and you have some conductors. There's typically some electron flow taking place, and maybe, but he was trying to indicate that this thing is alive. Human beings are electrical machines, so it would make sense that we eat that kind of food. Now, I was thinking also about Usain Bolt, and at one point they were asking, it's just anecdotally among my community, a story that they asked Usain Bolt, what does he eat? And he said something like, or what makes him so fast? And he said it's the food that he eats. He eats yams, cassava, and some other root type of foods. I think he listed. So he attributed it to the food. But me, myself, being from Jamaica now, I think about it. For a few years, the Jamaican track and field team, Olympic team, had a significant presence and significant achievements in track and field for such a small country. Now, are we the only ones eating yams? No, probably not. Are we the only ones eating cassava? No, probably not. In Ethiopia, they eat a thing called sorghum, which I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's something just like that. But Kenya is known for long distance runners. Ethiopia is known for long distance runners. So I'm interested in knowing what they're eating also. Track and field requires bursts of energy in sprinting, which is the area which Jamaica dominates. The Kenyan and Ethiopian long distance runners, their division requires a lot of endurance. But either way you look at it, it requires energy. It requires a lot of energy. I mean, any sports requires energy. But running, I don't know. Anyhow, so I'm just musing really about living food, about food that still grows when you plant it. Food that still grows when you plant it is probably conveying some energy to you that your body likes to use, that is beneficial and that's good for you. Now, I need to go in here and get a garbage can and some gloves. So I'm gonna sign off now, but thanks for listening. And I did a query on Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI partner to the equivalent AI software, I guess, compared to Bard or ChatGPT kind of. So I asked, what produce keeps growing after you buy it? So it said green onions, lettuce, celery, basil, garlic, carrots, potatoes, apples, and tomatoes. Right? So I guess those are some produce that might be able to give us some good energy when we eat them. Now, green onions is really just spice, but lettuce, that's good for salads. Celery is pretty good. That you can put that in your drinks and stuff like that. It has a funny taste to me though. Basil, that's another spice. Garlic, that's another spice. Carrots, that's food. Potatoes and tomatoes. Tomatoes are more like dressing, so I guess you can make yourself a salad with some tomatoes and lettuce and who would put celery in? I don't think anybody would put celery in their salad, but if you do, then I respect you a lot. So there we go. Let me read some of the things that they said under it in response to my question. Green onions, if you place white roots in water or soil, they will continue to grow new green shoots. Lettuce, you can regrow lettuce by placing the base in a shallow dish of water. New leaves will start to sprout from the center. Celery, similar to lettuce, the base of the celery can be placed in water and grow new stalks. Basil cuttings can be placed in water to grow new roots, which can then be planted in soil. Garlic, planting a garlic clove can result in new garlic shoots, which can be used like green onions. let's see here. Carrots remain alive and continue to respire, which is why they can sometimes sprout new greens if left in a humid environment. Potatoes can sprout new shoots if stored in a dark, cool place, indicating they are still alive. Apples continue to respire and can ripen further after being picked. Well, the verdict is out on apples to me, but tomatoes continue to ripen after being harvested, thanks to their ongoing metabolic activity. So it kind of indicates also that if something is ripening, if it's going from its green state to its, when it's ripen, I don't really know how to describe that, but you got even bananas that'll still ripen. You know what I mean? You get some green bananas, they'll turn to yellow bananas, so on and so on and so forth. So according to what I'm reading, that indicates metabolic activity going on inside of the plant. It's still kind of growing, it's still kind of evolving, et cetera, et cetera. So that would indicate that the food is living. So I guess those are, in my opinion, those seem to be foods that convey a lot of energy. We know that bananas convey a lot of energy. This short list that Copilot provided me is probably very limited. It's not extensive at all, because I think we could identify a lot of different plants that are living. But hey, I gotta go. Thanks for listening.